The wind was merciless, howling through the desolate streets of the city like an angry spirit. Snowflakes swirled in the air, thick and unrelenting, blanketing every surface in a suffocating layer of white. For most, the storm was a reason to huddle indoors, to savor the warmth of a crackling fire. But for the stray cat slinking through the alleyways, it was just another battle for survival. It was a small creature, fur mottled with shades of gray and white, its frame gaunt from too many missed meals. The cat didn't have a name, not anymore. Once, it might have belonged to someone. Once, it might have purred under the gentle caress of a hand. But those days, if they ever existed, were long gone. Now it was just a shadow slipping through the night. The cold gnawed at its paws, but hunger was a greater enemy. It sniffed at a discarded can, licked at a frozen crust of bread, and moved on when nothing more could be found. That's when it heard it, the sound that would change everything. At first, the cat froze, its ears pricking toward the faint noise. A cry? It was high-pitched and wavering, almost drowned out by the howling wind. The cat turned its head, ears swiveling, its instincts warring with its curiosity. The sound came again, a desperate, fragile wail. The cat moved cautiously, its paws crunching softly on the snow. It followed the sound, weaving through the narrow alley until it came to a small heap near a dumpster. The source of the sound became clear, and the cat stopped in its tracks. There, in the midst of the storm, was a baby. It lay bundled in a thin, tattered blanket, its tiny face red and wrinkled from the cold. The blanket was soaked through, offering little protection against the relentless chill. The baby's cries were weak now, each one more strained than the last, and its tiny fists waved feebly in the air. The cat hesitated. It was just an animal driven by instinct. What could it possibly do? The cat stepped closer, its nose twitching. The baby smelled strange, nothing like food, nothing like a threat. Just fragile. Vulnerable. The cat sniffed again and then did something remarkable. It curled its body around the baby. The cat's thin fur wasn't much of a barrier against the cold, but it was warm enough to make a difference. It pressed itself tightly against the tiny form, its tail curling protectively around the baby's legs. The baby whimpered softly but didn't cry again, as if sensing the warmth and comfort the cat offered. Hours passed. The snow continued to fall, piling up around them. The cat's body trembled as the cold seeped into its bones, but it didn't move. It stayed where it was, shielding the baby as best it could, its ears flicking at every sound. A distant howl made it stiffen. A dog, perhaps, or something worse, but it didn't leave its post. The night dragged on, each minute an eternity. The baby's breathing grew fainter, its tiny chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. The cat nudged it gently with its nose, urging it to stay awake, to keep fighting. And somehow, against all odds, the baby did. As dawn broke, the storm began to subside. The streets were eerily silent, muffled by the thick layer of snow. The cat stirred, its body stiff and aching, but it didn't abandon its charge. It began to meow, softly at first, then louder, more insistent. It was a sound filled with desperation, a plea for help. A faint light appeared in the distance. Footsteps crunched on the snow, hesitant and slow. The cat meowed again, louder this time, and the footsteps quickened. "Is someone there?" a voice called out. It was a woman, bundled in a heavy coat, her face half hidden by a scarf. She froze when she saw the cat, her eyes widening as she took in the sight before her. "Oh my God," she whispered. She rushed forward, her hands trembling as she scooped up the baby. The blanket was ice cold and the baby's skin was pale, its tiny lips tinged with blue. The woman pressed it to her chest, frantically checking for signs of life. "It's alive," she breathed. "It's alive." She looked down at the cat, her eyes filling with tears. You saved it?" The woman didn't hesitate. She took the baby and the cat, hurrying to the nearest hospital. The baby was rushed into emergency care, its tiny body warmed and monitored as doctors worked to stabilize it. The cat too was cared for, its frostbitten paws bandaged, its emaciated body fed and warmed. The story spread quickly. Nurses, doctors, and eventually the local media were moved to tears by the tale of the stray cat that had saved a life. People came forward with donations, offers of adoption, and words of gratitude. But the woman who had found them, the one who would later be identified as Emily, had already made up her mind. She adopted them both. The baby, whom she named Hope, grew stronger with each passing day. And the cat, now named Guardian, became a permanent part of their family. The bond between them was unbreakable, a testament to the extraordinary power of compassion and survival. Years later, Emily would sit with Hope and tell her the story of how a stray cat had saved her life. And every time without fail, it would end in tears. The story didn't end there. Guardian's act of heroism inspired others, sparking a movement to care for stray animals and abandoned children. Shelters received an influx of support, and countless lives were saved because of the example set by one small, scrappy cat. And though Guardian never spoke a word, its action said everything. That even in the harshest conditions, even in the most desperate circumstances, kindness and love can prevail.